What can you learn from these jokes about Chinese people?
I mean, these are some of the most successful comedians in world history. I mean, as Chinese people, I think these jokes are worth analyzing.
Because I didn't come up with this idea on my own. This idea that a person can be born in the wrong body. But they have to admit, that's a hilarious predicament. It's really funny. If it happened to me, you'd laugh, wouldn't you? That wouldn't be funny if it happened to me? I think it would be. What if it did? What if I was Chinese, but born in this body? That's not funny. And for the rest of my life, I had to go around making that face. Hey, everybody, I'm Chinese. And everyone get mad. Stop making that face. That's offensive. What? This is how I feel inside.
Oh, man, Andrew, I remember when this joke dropped. Andrew, this special was controversial. This joke even did offend some people in the Asian community. Obviously, everybody has different sensitivity levels, tenderness levels. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but I will say this. Andrew, he sort of did a caricature of a face of, I guess, like a very ugly Chinese villager, perhaps. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I never met anybody in my life that looked like this. I know a lot of people, but I'm just saying he definitely played off like a more comical, technically bad end stereotype.
Yeah, I would say he actually became the caricature of one of those like racist Chinese cartoons from like the early 1900s.
No,
or like
of,
1960s
of Wing Wang Wong, the waiter, right? Who was like, hey, what do you think I'm Chinese to me?
I mean, he's trying to use this as a ridiculous joke aspect of a larger joke, of a more difficult, like even complicated subject that he was talking about. But what I'm saying is that I guess as a Chinese person, I'm not as offended because it was so over the top. He's clearly not saying that all Chinese people look like that. So, but yes, it was an old school depiction. So maybe not the most like updated. Well, I figured he probably thought he was going to offend people with this entire Netflix special. So he was like, yo, let me just go at everybody.
But he said, this is how I feel inside.
Next clip.
Americans are learning Chinese. I've seen, Chinese. I see people say, you got to learn Chinese. They're taking over. Chinese. Ni hao ma. Shi xin ni. Chinese.
You're saying real
It's too
stuff.
late. It's too late to learn Chinese. It's over. No, it's true. It's true. Because it's also one of the hardest languages in the world. I mean, how do you learn Chinese now? Just, they've got over 10,000 characters in the alphabet. You know this? 10,000 characters.
50,000.
We've got 26 in English. And there's still people going, what comes after Q? 26. This is, 10,000 they've got. That's super smart. Although they must have the worst Sesame Street in the world. It must suck being a Muppet in that country. I can just see them on a Monday morning singing to the kids. 西跑冲朝西苏西冲房间冲朝西 5 years later. 冲朝西请早数请跑 It's just horrible.
Oh, man. Trevor Noah, always the world traveler, hyper international. Definitely nothing really offensive about this joke in the same way that I know that some Asian Americans were offended at the previous Dave Chappelle joke. Actually, I had never really seen this clip before, but yeah, he's making an interesting point about just how many characters are in the Chinese language. Obviously, the characters in the alphabet, there's no real correlation because each character is a word. It's a histogram, a pictographic language. But yeah, one thing I appreciated, Andrew, was that Trevor did not go with the ching, chang, chong, ping, pang, pong. He literally tried to imitate Mandarin accurately by going, 谢谢我天我天偏知道.
Yeah, no, and I like that this is a pretty accurate fake Chinese impression, right? Like, we're always looking for, I'm not saying people got to actually speak Mandarin in their comedy sets because that would not actually be as funny. But the accuracy of the fake Chinese is getting better and better. I remember Richie Lee, our friend who's Vietnamese, he would do an impression of our friend's Taiwanese mom speaking Mandarin. He'd be like, 我喜shu wo shu wo shi shi wo si. And if you know Taiwanese Mandarin, it's accented to be a little bit more like essy, right? Like,
right.
It's a little bit more like that than other types of Mandarin. So it's just Man, it's funny. But also, I think the other point that he was making that is not to be overlooked is that he was saying, hey, man, everybody's telling you to learn Chinese because Chinese is going to take over.
And this is like 6-7 years ago, I think, before the geopolitical relationship sort of disintegrated. Because you got to think back then, Andrew, even Trump's grandkids can't speak Mandarin.
Right. So what can people learn from this overall, David? I mean, Trevor is a super well-traveled global
Dude, this was a great
international
joke.
person.
Honestly, this is a joke that I thought an international Chinese Western comedian would make. I mean, one, he's making a comment on the language, right? And how difficult the language is, and how much everybody was overselling when they're like, yeah, you know, China's going to take up a big slice of the pie in the global macroeconomics. Everybody got to learn Chinese. But of course, everybody overestimated how difficult it was to learn Chinese. Actually, that a lot of educated Chinese can speak English. And I found that a lot of people who actually learn Mandarin, Andrew, who aren't Chinese, they sort of lose it over time because there's not a lot of, I guess, interesting modern entertainment things to keep them engaged. I mean, long story short, Andrew, Trevor was saying a lot in this joke.
And in Mandarin, they have, you know, when you're speaking English, we have words that we use to stall till we get to the next word. Little shit words we'll shove in a sentence, words like or, you know, but, sorta, like, you know, but, you know. Just little crappy words that we'll shove in a sentence till we're thinking of the next word, you know what I mean? To stall. Well, in Mandarin, they have one word that they love to use, and it sounds really messed up in English. But this, you know what I'm saying. This Chinese is like, I know the word. So you know I'm not making it up, right? This is their word. All I hear when I'm in Beijing, people talking around me, all I hear around me is nigga. That's their word.
Yo, man, I would say along with Trevor Noah, Russell Peters has got to be the #2 international comedian in the sense that this guy is super well-traveled, Andrew. He got famous initially for making a bunch of Cantonese jokes, Hong Kong Cantonese jokes in Toronto, and then now he's transitioned to making the Northern Chinese jokes, specifically, of course, about the offensive-sounding but not offensive word, nigga.
No, I would say, honestly, Russell Peters is a lot of Chinese people's favorite comedian because he does such deep cut like Chinese jokes. And yeah, obviously, you know, nigga is like, you know, that's the word that has caused, it's actually the root of a lot of jokes, I feel like, at this point. But even recently, there was some K-pop controversy because in Korean, they have a word that sounds like that too, and it means you.
And they had a hit single called You, right?
Yeah, and it was just nigga, 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 nigga. And in multiple songs, they sing that. So I guess, yeah, that's just kind of funny too, man. It's just,
I think it's really funny when outside people start to analyze the difference in linguistic like dialects because China has so many different dialects. I noticed that a lot of comedians, Andrew, their impression is based around like who they've been around the most. If they go to Chinatown a lot, it's going to be based off Cantonese or Fujianese. Obviously, if they travel, if they're around Mandarin speakers, it's more of a, you know, like he says,
what I loved about this joke and what we can learn from it is that Russell Peters actually did explain why Chinese people say it. And because he's saying that it's a filler word. So he was able to tie it to filler words that we use in English. So he's really drawing the parallel between the two cultures. And I thought that was actually helpful.
I mean, there's a reason why all these guys are super rich and super successful. These guys are good comedians.
I see that shit. I see it all around. Blacks and whites don't fight so much. You know who don't have no beef with anybody is Asian people. I see how y'all be doing. Y'all just lay in the cut. Only people Asian people beef with is other Asian people. Like if you call a Korean guy Chinese, I've done this. They will flip out, hey! What make you think I'm Chinese? I am Korean. I look Chinese. Yes, motherfucker, you do look Chinese. That's why I said it. It's an accident. To the untrained eye, you all look Chinese to me. It's a mistake. I'm not trying to offend you. Some people say all black people look alike. We don't get bent out of shape. We normally just call those people police. Okay? Just learn to live with it. That's all I can tell.
Yo, it's crazy at the end of the joke. Chappelle's like, hey, man, just learn to live with it.
Man, he was saying a lot in this clip, man. First of all, he said, man, Asians don't beef with anybody. And on a statistical level, is more true.
Right. He's calling out the classic white-black binary. I mean, a lot of people say there is a constant, whether it's low-key at the moment or high-key at the moment, race war in America between white and black people. And then he's like, yeah, you know who Asians do? Asians don't got beef with anybody.
Yeah.
Except other Asians. Asians will beef within Asians. Which is true, actually.
And the example that he brings up is a Korean person getting mad that they're being called Chinese. Now, if you have any Korean friends at all, you know that this is true, that maybe it was the older generation that got super offended. But even our friends growing up, I saw them get offended for being called Chinese in front of me. And I was like, damn, man, why are you getting so mad at that? What's wrong with being Chinese? What? You think I look Chinese, man?
Right. I think it's because in the Korean world, this is what I've been told by a Korean friend, is that being called Chinese for the older generation means that you are a low-class delivery boy and like not a high-class desired person. Hey, man, that's what somebody told me.
Yeah, I feel like they don't get as mad when they get called Japanese.
Yeah, they get mad in a different way. Yeah. I would say this, Andrew. Chappelle's Korean accent was a little bit better than I thought. I'm not saying it was perfect. It was definitely kind of mixed with the Chinese one. But he's like, I'm Korean. You think I look Chinese?
No, when he said Korean, that was a good one. And then, yeah. No, honestly, I mean, I think he spent time in the big cities. He spent time in LA.
His wife is Asian, right?
His wife is Asian. So, yeah, I mean, he has been around some Asians, you know, but he doesn't always talk about it in the same way. But somewhere in his later specials, he did have more jokes about, like, Japan and the Philippines.
You're Asian, right, miss? What type of Asian? You're Taiwanese? That's a good one. Nah, that's a good one. That's like China 2.0. Right? Because Taiwanese, right? I'm getting that right. Taiwanese were like, we out. And then they were like, Japan's too far. Let's just stop right here. This island, nah, this island's good. We're not going all the way. You're like those Indians that made it to like Trinidad. You know, the Indians are like, we're going to America. And then the first island, they're like, fuck it, pull over. This is far enough. I'm ready.
Oh, man, Andrew Schulz is also known for being a comedian that references a lot of deep-cut knowledge that a lot of other people do not know about history, race, ethnicity. Andrew, I think the funniest part right off the rip was, he goes, yeah, Taiwan, that's a good one, man. That's like China 2.0.
No, and the truth behind it is that obviously, and he does kind of go through the history really quickly, but basically, like, a lot of people feel like Taiwan is like where like the nice Chinese people live. Well, like the good manners and the peaceful, and it's like mixed in with the Japanese manners, and obviously things happened in China which like made them not as nice. But you know what I mean? You know, you go to Taiwan, it does feel a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he also referenced the Japan thing by saying, like, people escaped and they were trying to go to Japan, but they got lazy. Obviously, that's just a joke. But like you said, Taiwan does have a sizable amount of Japanese influence. He also referenced Indians going to, like, Trinidad, but I almost want to say it's almost like Indians going to, like, Fiji more.
Yeah. And then I also felt like his Indian accent was actually a little bit more Arabic. But I think, you know, when you're trying to bust out accents on the spot, it can get confusing sometimes if you have a lot of them in your brain. So, but yeah, overall, I mean, it was a good bit. And just the fact that, you know, I'm sure a lot of Taiwanese people out there appreciate the Taiwanese jokes because Taiwan is not always something that is joked about as much. Obviously, as overall China is like this big umbrella identity. Everybody kind of clumps.
And I think that this really shows why Andrew Schulz is considered like the next wave of mainstream comic, or not, maybe not mainstream comic, but next generation, because he knows so much about other types of people. Obviously, he looks white, so people are like not gonna think that he knows all those details.
Yeah. What I would take away from this, guys, is like if you hear anything insightful said by a non-Asian about Asian people, I think that one goes to show you that they did a lot of their research and they probably have some Asian friends in their circle somewhere. And two, I think it also goes to show you like, hey man, as Asians, other people are thinking about us and figuring us out. Like we got to be able to figure out other people, you know?
Or even just be able to figure out ourselves, to be honest. Sometimes I think like Asian Americans, obviously this is not everybody, but like they're just like living life, you know, kind of like in America on, I don't want to say autopilot mode, but like they're not even thinking about how we're being perceived. I get it because, you know, we got to worry about our careers and buying assets and getting residual income streams. But I don't know. I think this stuff is all valid as well. Anyway, let us know in the comment section below what you thought of these jokes. What did you think of our analysis? In fact, if you have other jokes that other comedians have made about Asians and you want to see us analyze them, please send them to us. And Andrew, comedy at the end of the day, man, there's a lot of truth said in jest.
Hey, it's not really funny unless it's kind of true.
And by the way, we're not saying these are all completely true, by the way.
I'm just saying there's a shred of truth in them. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching the Hot Pot Boys. And until next time, we out.
Peace.